course, she wants a truck, which is fine. I'm glad she wants a truck. But with the market, I'm like, and then
Right.
and then my wife decides, hey, maybe we should buy a house. Been asking about that for the past 8 years. Let's do it now when the interest rates are high.
I'm trying to think of what is more expensive than buying a truck and a house right now, Jeff.
Not much. Not much. Yeah.
I mean, gold.
Oh, maybe not. I don't know.
I might have to sell some of my gold and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's gotten up. It's if I sold it now, I'd actually, I wouldn't be losing any money. I don't know. I probably never shared that with you, Cliff. It's quite a few years ago, many years ago, actually. And my son wanted a video game. It's probably like 8 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. He wanted this video game online through the Steam engine, which is some platform. And the only way to purchase it was through Bitcoin. Well, back then I'm like, Bitcoin. Okay. I'd heard about it. Wasn't familiar. It's like, well, how do I buy it? So I jump into this program called Coinbase and I bought $50 and the game was like, $46. After all said and done, I had like $2.87 sitting in the account. 8 years later, or however long, 8, 10, I don't know. It was probably 8. I was like, man, I should get on this Bitcoin thing and check it out. So, I open up Coinbase, I download Coinbase, and I go to log in. It's like, you already have an account. I'm like, what? I don't remember this. So I did the
name, right?
Yes. So I did the password reset, and the account comes up, and there's like $1,100 in there, and I'm like,
holy
cow, son of a bitch!
Wow.
Why didn't I put $100 in there?
I know. You could have been. Could have been retired by now, Jeff.
Exactly. I know a lot should be paid off.
Yes. I wasn't that smart either, so don't worry.
Yeah. Buying that new house and truck wouldn't be such a big deal.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. This is why we're on the Dealer Refresh podcast and not the Joe Rogan podcast.
That's right. Exactly.
None of us were that smart.
True. Yeah, $2 and some odd cents.
Man.
Wow. Well, here we go.
So the good thing about that is every time I would buy more at a much higher price, it still kept my average really, really low.
Nice. Well, it looks like Drew's here.
Drew.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of people said they were jumping on today.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. That's what happens when you throw
Cliff's
name up there. No. Cliff, I was going through some old photos several weeks ago.
Oh my.
And and I'm looking at this photo. I'm like, what the hell is this? It's food. And then somehow there is a caption tied to it. And I was going through an old BlackBerry phone, mind you. And it was a photo
that long
and the caption
for Jeff.
Yeah. And the caption on it was something like sheep balls with Cliff Banks.
I thought we were never going to talk about that story, but okay.
Well, enough time's gone by. I know we've talked about it before.
Some kind of delicatessen that we were eating. I don't know.
It's like 2:00 in the morning, and
I think
the thing that they had on the appetizers was sheep balls.
Right.
Let's get some sheep balls.
Like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Jeff,
I don't
what
even
is
remember
this
where I
sweater
was.
you got on?
Oh, Fridays were allowed to be festive.
Nice. Is it a Mercedes sweater?
It is. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah. Every Friday. I think we're supposed to put some money in Toys for Tots if we do it. I need to get on that portion of it.
Yep. Now it's recorded, and there's no getting out of it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Cliff, it's always good to see you, man.
It's good to see you guys.
well, Cliff, you
It
just
seems
finished
like it's
Autovate, didn't you?
this time last week, I was getting off the stage with Damon John. That's right. This
Give
time
us a
last week,
lowdown. What's that
exactly.
all about?
So, well, it was, we've taken it up a few levels.
Let's say.
I don't know that it always brings people in, but it's a nice way of giving back to the attendees. And that was a great conversation that we had on stage last week. He was, we bought quite a few Bomba socks for the audience and told them Thursday, make sure you wear them on Friday. When I bring Damon up on stage, we'll surprise him by showing him our feet or whatever. And we did. I think he got a real kick out of that. He's really big on sincerity and people that care and go the extra mile. So I think that was, I think that kind of set the stage for the conversation. And he had some great anecdotes and great insight just into working with investors, working with entrepreneurs, working with customers, and some good life advice. So, but yeah, it was a great. I'll tell you, when you can get that many smart, really intelligent, and accomplished people on stage, it makes the conference go really well, and people who are willing to be candid about what's going on and their perspectives, and in somewhat of an informal but formal setting without selling or pitching. We really have, I think, built a brand or something that is unique there. So, I don't know. I'm still learning. A lot of
No,
it's
you're not. Come
instinctive,
on
I
now.
guess. No, I don't know. But yeah, we do little touches. I think the food is phenomenal that I try to do, make sure that we have incredible food and experiences, unlike a lot of conferences. And I'm in a position I don't have to nickel and dime or really look for that, drive the profit as much. It kind
And
of flows out of that. So
my hope is that sheep balls are on the menu.
I haven't gotten there yet. I think that was the only place I've ever seen that. So I have no idea what we were eating that night.
That'll be the
many
West
years
Virginia
ago.
venue.
So
Yes. That's
the
real
Milford.
balls.
Yeah. But I think some of the takeaways last week, one, and you guys will probably have questions for these, but seems like the general opinion is that the dealer buy sell world will still be brisk and aggressive. Maybe not as much in the last 2 years, but valuations are still high, even though they've come down a little bit. People are still willing to spend a lot of money. There's rumors of a couple of large deals, expensive deals going down.
Oh, yeah.
Bigger than
Yeah,
Coons?
no, not bigger than Coons, but I mean that was a big one, obviously. But no,
Wasn't that the
several hundred
biggest?
million.
Like per store?
Yeah.
Well, I have to go back and look at per. So I did I actually did when it was first announced, and there were some crazy numbers being thrown around, 3 billion, and I had to put together a quick report on the pricing was going to be more like 1.1 to 1.5, depending on where the real estate and inventory came in at, but 1.2 right there. I'd have to go back and look at that report and see what the per store number was, but it's clearly in the top 5, top 3, maybe top 5 acquisitions of all time.
Mhm.
So
My wife, she works for Ford Direct, and one of her groups that she works with is Coons, and so
right.
she's going through that all this week. She's
Oh
been
yeah.
going through that
Oh yeah,
transaction.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
She's been,
That
she's been
creates
stressed out.
creates a significant ripple effect with vendors, no doubt,
Mm-hmm.
when those get
Yep.
done. So, Florida seems to be a popular place right now. I mean, we've had the Hendrickson Toyota deal that was done. You had the Dream stores, the 2 Mercedes stores in Florida that went for approximately 700 million. That was everything combined, real estate and everything. But
Jesus.
and that was who's that guy from Alabama, the coach from Alabama, who Michigan is
Oh,
going to
yeah.
play in
I
a
forget
couple of
his name.
weeks. Saban. Sorry, Nick. No, I'm a
That
Michigan guy.
was he the original owner?
No,
I don't think
Nick
so.
is partnered with Joe Agresti, and they've bought several stores over the last
Okay.
several years. So they are Mercedes is big fans of theirs, so they
Yeah.
get the inside track, I think, on some of these deals. But they're willing to pay for it too, and they're great, and they're good dealers. So
Yeah. I was just curious to what the return on that was.
well, you just don't know. I mean, look, that comes over time. So I think we're seeing the dealer buy sells. I think that was the general opinion last week at Autovate. The other is we probably are going to see more transactions done in 2024 on the vendor side. There were a lot. I mean, there were several this past year, smaller. There's one, I'll say one big one that we can't talk about. But it was a private equity investment.
Hmm.
There's several. I would say, boy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's probably 5 or 6 larger companies right now that are eyeing potential exits in the next year or two. So, if interest rates start to come down, which they very well might, I think that's going to create a pop in that on the M&A market. So we may see some interesting deals here in 2024.
You're getting Glenn Garvin says you're a tease. Come on, man.
Yeah. Well, sometimes. And then what else? Glenn Mercer, who's one of my favorite analysts and speakers in this space, does a lot of work with NADA. He's a former CIA analyst, former McKinsey analyst, but he put up a slide, and I put it up on LinkedIn today, that just showed he took headlines from Automotive News in 1958, and really all except for one, you could remove the year and think that those were headlines from this year.
Oh, really?
So, and in fact,
Huh.
Chrysler was testing an auto accelerator that they called Autopilot.
Are you serious?
Yep. So,
I'll have to check that
you know,
out.
Huh.
I think for some of us guys that really are folks that push back against this idea that the dealer or direct to consumer or agency model is soon upon us and dealers are going away. We've seen this time and time again throughout history, and I've got 33 plus years in this, and so yeah, I just roll my eyes when I see those kinds of pronouncements, and certainly the Amazon Hyundai announcement created another slew of headlines about the dealer going away or Amazon coming for the
Yeah.
dealer, Amazon selling. You know,
How many times have we seen
Well,
that?
do you know how
right?
many stores are participating in that?
18 stores for I think it's 6-month test, and all 18 are actually in metro areas where there's a number of Amazon employees, and I think for the first month at least, it's only Amazon employees that are able to participate. I listen. I look great for Amazon and Hyundai, and anything Amazon can bring to the table. But I'll tell you, I don't think retail is where Amazon's play is. I think it's the bigger play is further down the journey. Is and I think we talked about this last year. Connected vehicles. I think they're the ones that have the means and the wherewithal to do that. Now they have to learn about automotive retail. But I'll tell you, I don't know that we're going to be talking about Amazon and Hyundai 2 years from now. I could be
I
wrong.
doubt
There's
it.
a lot of dealer groups lined up, a lot of manufacturers lined up, ready to jump in on this. But I think it's just creating another level of potential friction between the customer and the dealer that doesn't need to be there. And
I
there's
agree.
a lot of work that needs to be done if they want to solve that. And I just, I'm just not seeing. I just don't see where the play for Amazon is. Why it makes sense for them to be, other than to learn about the retail side of the business to help further along their AWS and maybe even connected vehicle and Alexa
That's what
plays.
Drew's saying here. Was more
Yeah.
about
Yep.
AWS for.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Well, last year when you were on, you said the biggest question was how are EVs and connected vehicles going to be sold moving forward?
Well, I think,
So,
yeah, I think that's still, I think the question of how they're going to be sold has been answered again. Look, all that talk, but all that talk last year about direct to consumer and, Ford and General Motors going that route has all fallen by the, it's disappeared. It's faded into the background, and it's no surprise. I didn't think that, now, listen, I still think we are in a great period of uncertainty regarding the future of EVs. I I don't know that
Hmm.
I don't know that we can answer the question yet, because we still don't have a good read on where true consumer demand is. There's a very real possibility, and I think this is the case, that the Tesla popularity isn't necessarily because it's an EV, it's because of Elon Musk. And I think the EV aspect of it is just a byproduct of that, of their
I think,
growth.
yeah, I think it's because it's something different, and keeping up
Right,
with the Joneses falls into
right,
play. It's new
sure,
technology. If you're a technology person, you're going to be all over it. And they're freaking fast. They're,
right,
technology wise, they're very interesting. That's how I've always viewed it. It wasn't even about the fact that it was an EV
right,
for the
exactly.
sake
Yeah,
of emissions and stuff like that.
right,
It was for a lot of people, it was their toy. It
right,
was their new
well, here
technology toy.
I would say the people I see driving around here, and I'm in Subaru Central in Vermont, but there's a lot of Teslas rolling around. And the network
Mhm.
for charging is really good. It's one of the best I've seen. But a lot of the people who have them, seem to be that kind of person who bought a Prius when those first came around and said, "Look at me,
Mhm.
I'm doing my
That too.
thing for humanity."
yeah. There's some of that, but don't let them fool you. I mean, people in California that bought Priuses did it so they could get into the high occupancy lane and the freeways. And I mean, really, I mean that is really
I
the
believe
truth.
that.
I mean, so I think the question of EVs is still out there. I mean, I I don't think we're going to be anywhere near 30% by 2030. Maybe at the
Yeah.
most 20%. Um, so much has to
Not unless
happen.
it's not unless it's
So
forced
much
upon
has to
us.
happen. Right. And I don't see that. I think they're going to start backing off from that. So,
Yeah.
um,
It'll be interesting. What about
the,
some? What do you see? What do you see with some of those? Those Are there any new EV manufacturers sort of coming up on horizon that we should be keeping our eyes on? I know we've talked about Lucid before. DeLorean's got something. Canoe, VinFast, um, which I think's out of Vietnam.
VinFast is
Lord's,
out of,
yeah,
I think
Lordstown.
yeah, those are all, I think, in Fisker. I just drove a Fisker this past week. Um, Alexi
Someone
Veneri
around here
is,
has an old Fisker.
yeah. Well, it's a brand new
Nice.
one. In fact, Alexi Veneri is very progressive. She
Hmm.
loves buying these EVs and seeing what they're about and testing them. And so we get to drive. I was able to spend some time in one. I listen. These cars are phenomenal, but they're novelties. I don't think for the
Hmm.
everyday consumer, and certainly the price point puts it far out of the reach of most. Uh, the VinFast play is going to be short lived. I think once they see that it's not going to sell like it does in Vietnam, I think the owner, even though it is a public
Hmm.
company, the owner controls 99% of the stock, and I think he's going to get bored very quickly over here. Um, uh, the Lucid, some of the
Yeah.
others, just the money's not there.
Yeah.
It takes so much capital to build something really good. And the competition is so hard. The ones to watch would be the Chinese brands, BYD, Neo, and specifically BYD, who they're already. I mean, some of the Chinese automakers are already having conversations with dealer groups over here and state regulators and whatnot to
Mm-hmm.
see how to roll out a play here in the States, and they will partner with dealers. They will not do it directly to the consumer. They will partner with large dealer groups and whoever on the dealership side. So it will be a dealership play, and there are numerous dealers who would jump at the chance to sell a Chinese EV that's viable. And BYD seems to be the one that is putting that play together. But again, the U.S. consumer is much different than what we have in Europe
Mm-hmm.
or elsewhere. So I just, if any of these new players are going to be successful, I would put my money on BYD
Yeah, it's
as
not a
opposed
huge
to any of
market
the
for.
others. No,
There's not a huge market for novelty vehicles.
right, exactly. So, and and listen, I mean, I just think the capital, the money it takes to manage this stuff. We see how hard it is for GM launching Ultium. I mean, they've had nothing but problems.
Mm-hmm.
Ford, executing these launches, and even Tesla. You had the quote unquote news of the so-called recall this week, which really wasn't. I mean, it's a recall.
It's just an
but it's not
update.
a recall. It was an over-the-air update mandated by the
Yeah,
federal government. I think so. I think
that's
at some
shady.
point we're going to start seeing some of the terms, regarding recalls. I think we're going to see some of that dissipate or change or evolve over the next couple of years, just because. Look, I mean, everyone jumped at, Tesla doesn't have the service or parts. They don't need it. It's a over the air update. Simple.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, it seems like this administration's got a target on his back. And whenever I read about this recall thing, I was like, well, that's not a recall. Why are they phrasing
well,
it
it's
like
because they forced it. Anytime it's mandated by the federal government, by the regulators, it's going to be a recall right now. So that's why.
Gotcha.
Well, speaking of EVs, do they have any hand in the layoffs coming from General Motors and Stellantis lately?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's not what they're saying publicly, but
well, yeah, obviously they waited till after the UAW strike was resolved to start making those moves. Yeah, part of it is because some of these vehicles are piling up on dealer lots. I mean, Stellantis, and for whatever reason, I maybe there's other Chrysler or Stellantis dealers that know better than me, but I have yet to see any aggressive incentives from Stellantis here. So I'm just wondering if there's not something else at play, because typically by this point, seeing what's on their lots, we would be seeing aggressive incentives across the board, and we're not seeing that. So I think the next question is, is there something else at play here? And let your imagination run wild.
I wonder if it's the fiscal year, because there's rumors abound right now that Ford's getting ready to drop some pretty hefty stuff in January.
It could be.
So,
That could be. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, Alex, I mean, that's certainly a great point. We may start seeing in 2024 some more aggressive financing, but it just seems, the holiday end of the year is a big selling period for
true.
for the Jeffs of the world, right? I mean, you guys, this is
typically is, but
right.
usually November, December is are two of our strongest months of the year.
Right.
Not this year.
Right. So
No.
I don't know. We're seeing some reports. There's a couple, and I say a couple, I mean 5 or 6 Ford dealerships that I know of that have shut down without selling. It means there's probably more that I don't know about, but I don't know that that's a huge trend. I think it's just maybe a willowing about or winnowing of some of the rural stores that aren't getting the inventory that they want. I think 2020. It'll be interesting to see what starts happening in January 2024 because I think a lot of the strategies with the OEMs are in play yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, agreed. Maybe there's something going on the interest rate side, as the Fed has come out and said they're going to lower rates in 24. So if you're going to run a Savine rate incentive, maybe you can
Right.
get a little
Maybe.
more aggressive with it
Right.
because
Right.
there's
Right.
Well, it's kind of a funny one. I was trying to think of how to piece like GM, Stellantis, and Cobalt websites together because
yeah, the Ancira deal
yeah.
goes to a brand new. Well, I say brand new. I think maybe just over a year old or so. VC firm, TrueLink, I think is the name of it. From what I've been picking up, in conversations I've had with people familiar with the transaction, is the question is, the new owners, are they focused on, are they really focused on automotive? It seems like they're more focused on the consumer packaged goods world. So I don't know. I don't know what that means for the Cobalt, quote unquote, Cobalt websites. I think
there were some good people over there. I don't know how many survived the layoffs, but
right, yeah. Exactly. There were quite a few that didn't. So probably some opportunity maybe for a dealer e-process or someone else. I think to jump in and get it. Hey, it's hard to know, but you have to keep going to that well. I think if you're one of the outside players. True. BZ results. It was BZ results. Yeah, Cobalt. Yeah. Well, it was Cobalt, Delix, then a lot of iterations through the years.
Yeah, I forgot about BZ results.
Yep, that was 100% Flash.
That was all Flash, right? Yep.
Even their emails.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
Stories we could tell.
That's funny. Well, going back on acquisitions, I was curious if there were some acquisitions that may have been in play that didn't happen. And I keep hearing like there's a ton of dry powder in the investor community that hasn't been deployed, and they continue to hold it back. And there's some belief amongst the bankers that they're only going to be able to hold it back for another year, maybe, before the fees and everything get to start pissing off some of these investors. But I've also heard that the change in the interest rates, and then of course when Silicon Valley Bank went down, there were a change in valuations on SaaS technologies across the board, not just in automotive. And so you've had some very differing opinions on valuations between the companies themselves or their boards and what buyers are willing to pay for them. And has that screwed some things up in 23 at all?
Well, I think that was happening long before SVB debacle or blow up happened, actually. I mean, I know of 3, 4 that were in play this time last year that got pulled off the table. That would have been significant transactions. And it was all, we're not getting the valuation we want. And so there wasn't any need to sell. So why take that lower number? They were still churning out a lot of cash. So they could, they have the flexibility or the luxury of being able to come back to the market at a different time. Look, I mean, at some point, look, I mean, we'll see a JD Power exit. I mean, Thoma Bravo, that's their play, their owners. CDK at some point with Brookfield as their owner. A year, 2, maybe. Some of the bigger ones, I think there's some mid-level plays that that could get done. I mean, listen, there are still deals getting done at decent valuations. It just depends on the level, right? Uh, but coming out of Autovate last week, the conversation was, and we had the buyers and the investors on stage, and they were all of the belief or that 2024 would be very active. At some point, we would see that the lid pop off, and there would be deals that were in play this past year, deals that might have been in play that didn't get done, that are going to be that will take place. Now, look, I mean, the structure could be different than what we've seen in the past. I don't know. But I think some of the deals we saw maybe were distressed deals, the smaller ones that we saw, the deals that had to get done. And maybe some of that was because of the SVB debacle. The interest rates certainly don't help. High interest rates don't help with some of this. But once the market gets used to and gets comfortable with where those interest rates are, and if they drop a little bit, then I think that'll be. We saw what happened, Wednesday night. Stocks went through, all jumped across the board, and especially the automotive stocks jumped significantly. I think it's just a matter of, it's just confidence that, it was funny when you watch the share prices of the public dealer groups, and that's not the only metric. I mean, that might be the last metric we really savvy investors should look at. But the fact is, Amazon and Hyundai made their announcement in LA, and the next day or that day, shares dropped of all the publicly traded dealer groups significantly. There was a sharp decline. Started climbing back up again over the last week or so, and then on Wednesday another huge jump. So now we're back to, we pretty much have regained everything that they lost, a month ago. And for the year, through last night, I think combined, the average share price was up 41, almost 42% year to date for the publicly traded dealer group. So still,
solid.
And that's in spite of some not so attractive earnings releases in the third quarter. We're still, the activity and interest is still high with them. And I would say this, that, look, over the last 10 years, the price comes down, it rebounds, always rebounds a little bit higher, comes back down, always rebounds a little bit higher. So we're pretty close to, maybe not Lithia, but with the others, we're pretty close to all-time highs again. So.
Do you ever dabble in it?
I do not. And it is because I don't want to find myself in jail someday. At some point. It's too dangerous. I know I hear too many things, and I think there's too much of a risk of me being accused of insider trading. So I just don't. I don't play with anything that I talk about, write about, or that I'm familiar with, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's sad because I would have been long retired by now, believe me. But but yeah, I can't. My name has come up in a couple of insider trading cases where just what the question was, what did Cliff know? Did Cliff say anything? So I have to. I'm very careful.
Gotcha.
Well, last question on the acquisition and funding side. So it sounds like you're predicting that private equity is still looking at automotive as a hot commodity, and that'll continue to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You got your typical players, big players. Bain, I think Warburg is certainly one that's going to play. Thoma Bravo's been in the space both in Canada and in the U.S. Advent. I mean, there's so many. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of interest. Some of it's on the EV side, some of it's on the mobility side. others is, some of it's on the the dealership side. Look, I will say this: what we've had over the last few years is an increasing sophistication or understanding of um, the automotive space from the investment side. So now you've guys, and we saw the story in Automotive News this week, Chase Fraser with FM Cap, Steve Greenfield with Auto Ventures, and then, we also had last week on stage, we had Holman Growth Ventures, which is a fairly new corporate VC fund. You got Hearst from the corporate side. Several others, the OEMs all have their corporate VC arms which invest. But that really is something that has started to take off, I think, within the last 10 years. Both Chase and Steve and Autotech Ventures and Holman have gone after, or when I say gone after, they've been able to bring on board several dealer investors. And I won't, I don't like, I'm just going to say it. I mean, I saw that early on in 2016 and made that suggestion to, Chase and I had that conversation way back, and he was the first one to see that play out, and was the first one to make that a thesis, which has worked. When you start looking at some of the dealer groups that have invested as limited partners in these VC funds. Now, dealers have always been part of the investment process in automotive tech. I mean, you go back to Marty Rood. Mm-hmm. I think he was the first one with dealership website putting, posting a Volvo, a gold Volvo on the. I may get that wrong. I may get the. But he was the first, in the 90s, and then you had other dealers. You had Wes Lutz in Jackson, Michigan, with Extreme Dodge. He was very early. John Garf in Utah. Again, he was one of the early ones too. So you've had dealers that over the years and through the last few decades that have really pushed the ball forward. Yeah, Steve Greenfield posted something earlier this year, a question on, let's see how many tech solutions that we can come up with that were built within the dealership. And oh my gosh, I mean, it's over 100.
Probably quite a few.
Yeah. I mean, you just start looking at the ones that were built or heavily funded by dealers. Mm-hmm. Adam Sims was another one that was very early in that game. So that story, Automotive News, I think it keeps the ball rolling on that. But I'll tell you, I mean, that's been an ongoing phenomena for years. So I think that that's one of the things with the automotive retail space. You get someone in a dealership that has a great idea, wants to solve a problem. And Damon John was talking about this last week, trying to solve a problem. And then you put a solution together, you go out and find capital, and there's plenty of people with money that are willing to fund and help move the process along and improve the industry. And so much of what we've seen is designed, or it's been built to help improve that interaction between the dealer and the customer. And so, this whole narrative that we see that dealers don't care, the dealers are, look, we're all human and people do things. But the fact is, I think this industry is very focused on trying to do things the right way, or at least improve the model. So, I think we're going to continue to see activity.
Yeah, we may go into it kicking and screaming, but we get there.
Sure. Of course.
Push it forward.
Doing it lightly.
And look, there's so much that we need to improve. But again, I think we like to criticize ourselves too much, and we let them,
Well, I also think, and I speak from experience on this, and I hope I don't offend anyone working in the stores right now, because I saw this in myself. But when I was on a monthly commission plan, never saw anything outside of the 30-day window we were currently in. And so it was really hard to go back and think about the wins we had in the past and the historical steps that were made, the progress that came over time to getting to the point where we were at. And I definitely struggled with, how what's the game plan for the future. And it was easy enough to come up with projections and a plan for the year, but we did that all the time, but we never saw it through. Like it's just there were too many things that changed. And being on the
Sure.
tech side, that's very different. You're always talking about the historical things that got you to this point, because a lot of those times they're like a ball and chain on you, especially with technology, because you made a decision 4 years ago, and now
Right.
tech,
Now
you're
you're
still
stuck with
stuck
it.
with that tech.
Right.
You ever
Exactly.
heard of CDK or Reynolds?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think for the deal. Yeah, and I think on the dealership side, look, it's still a monthly. What have you done for me this month? Right. You got to every month's a new month on the first or second or third or whatever, depending on the month. So you guys are doing, the dealers are doing everything they can to move that metal monthly. And that does create sometimes an environment that's not always friendly for the customer, but deal with it. I mean, I don't know. If I'm, there's always another dealer out there, right? I mean,
right.
I was in a car. I was in a Audi e-tron in Phoenix, and it was Uber. And the guy said to me that we were talking about the experience, and he made the comment, "I just wish I could have bought it from Audi." And I said, "Well, where'd you buy it from?" He said, "Well, the store, the MSRP was priced $10,000 above MSRP. The experience was terrible." I'm like, "Well, you still bought it." He goes, "Well, no, I bought it from a different dealership." What was that like? Well, it was the MSRP price and the experience was great. And I said to him, "Well, if you only had Audi to buy that from, what if your price and your experience at Audi was bad? You'd have nowhere else to go." I said, "At least with the dealer model, you can always find a different dealer." And
Fair point.
you could just see his mind rolling, because I never thought about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, our mainstream media or media talks about how bad the experience is, but I think
we talk about how bad the mainstream media is.
Yeah, you could do that. We could do that for sure. Yeah. I mean, and again, look, we have to be better across the board, but I mean, I'll say one, I mean, I'm trying to create a service appointment for my son's Ford vehicle, and I'm just going to call Ford out on this one. I can't do it. I mean, I've gone to 5 different dealership websites here in southeastern Michigan, and it's a disaster. I mean, it's impossible to do. I got a call, and I don't want to pick up the phone, call someone. I'd rather just make the appointment online, make it easy. Can't do it.
That's true
For the work that needs to be done. Yeah, I think it's across the board. I don't think it's just, but I think some of these solutions need to be. I think we need to look at them through the customer's eyes. It's like nobody on this service tool, and I'm not going to call it but nobody has gone through the process. They could not have gone through the process, because there's no way this thing would have gotten to to where it is if they had gone through the process.
Yeah. That always confused me, because there were some decent service scheduling tools 6, 7, 10 years ago.
Right.
And a lot of them got bought out and shelved. One of my favorites was Auto Revenue, which Dominion had acquired. Held on to it for a while. I haven't heard shit about that. And any of the, I mean, who's the top 3 players right now in service scheduling?
X-Time,
which has been around forever. Yeah. But I've seen a few over the past several years. There were some small startups. They had some good ideas, and then it's just like they stopped. It's like
the one I go, you go to the website, and there's no place to do anything mechanical or to set an appointment for anything mechanical. It's all regular vehicle maintenance.
Service. Yeah.
And then so I I don't, I'm kind of left wondering. And then I get an email from the vendor, and it's not even doesn't even say the vendor's name in the email. It's a completely ridiculous name in the email, and I'm going, what customer is going to follow through on this? So I'm thinking 2023, and here we are. I mean, there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. And listen, I get it. The technology is hard to do. I get it. There's so many mouths to feed and interest and hands in the till. But I do think that to me, it seems like we were better off 10 years ago than we are today with some of this.
Well, Cliff, you've been shutting down the Refresh Friday show for 5 years straight now. So I think we started in 2018. And so, all right, we've put this bookmark in here. All right, when do we get to reopen this chapter and say, okay, we can now? It's a pleasure to schedule service on a dealership website.
I see.
When do you think we'll be able to do that?
I mean, they're throwing AI into anything. There's got to be some type of solution out there that AI is going to be able to tap into.
I'll tell you what. I would love to see the day when my car, Alexa, or whatever, says to me, Cliff, you're going to need 2 new front brakes in about a month. ABC Motors has a slot open on Wednesday night at 5:30. You're going to be driving based on your calendar. You're going to be driving past the dealership. They know which loaner would you like, and it's all there. I think that's at some point it's doable, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin,
it's probably already doable.
Right.
Well, Kevin Fry is making some good points about some of the challenges to the dealership on this side. Just being able to hire. I saw a little graph earlier this week, I think, and I forget who to attribute this to, and I apologize for that. But it showed that the various things that consumers have had the most inflation in. And healthcare was in second place. It was like 9.82% or something.
Right.
But vehicle service was nearly 17%. And it was due to supply chain issues. And then what Kevin's talking about is the increase in labor rates because
you can't find the techs. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And it's going to get worse because of the whole, not just EV issue, but the whole issue of increased technology in these, in these cars. So they're not all going to be able to be solved by an over-the-air update.
Well, we've got a service here at this dealership, which I don't see too many people taking advantage of, but we've got it for the group. That's probably why, where you can finance. So if you bring your car in for service, and unfortunately it's a $6,000,
bill,
it's it's a high interest rate, of course, but it's an option for the consumer.
Right. Right. That was one of the solutions that FM Capital invested in early on, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It was one of these that provided financing for service work.
Yeah, I think you're about to see a few more of these options hit the market.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. What we want to do, we want to finance the car and then finance the service for it.
Just make the banks richer.
Yeah, there's no ulterior motive here.
No.
So, Cliff, this might be a tough one to answer. So last year you said the biggest question going into 2023 was how are EVs and the connected vehicles going to be sold?
Right.
There's a lot to that, obviously. What do you think is the big question for 24?
Not how they're going to be sold, but I think how, this whole EV conversation. And maybe we need to push that back out to 2025, 2026, because, the automakers are delaying their plans. I think the big question is, when do we see China make a move in the U.S.? Do we see that in 24, 25? I don't know that. I think the time frame for these is what I said last year. I think the time frame is still going to be pushed out a little bit before we get real clarity on whether
got
the EV
Cliff.
play is really going to be the way of the future. And Jeff, I mean, how many Mercedes EVs do you have sitting on your lot right now? Do I even want to ask? I mean,
Too many.
yeah, okay.
Too
I
many.
mean, I think
We've done what we can. We've
We've
done what we can to trade them out, or
sure,
switch them
sure.
for something else with another
Right.
dealership. But I mean, the cheapest one we has is Crescent on 6 figures. So
yeah, right.
I mean, don't get me wrong; they're phenomenal. Now EQS is like it's amazing, but
It is.
they're rated 105,000. There's really no other alternatives right now. You can get them in the 80s. It's like it's past my pay scale, that's for sure.
Right. So all right. So China, I think the big question is whether Mary Barra will still be running General Motors this time next year. She seemed to be very adamant earlier this week, a couple of days ago, in an interview that she is energized and excited and it plans to see this out for the next couple of years, but we will see. I don't think it's as rosy as she's painting it right now, at General Motors. And listen, if this Blazer and the Equinox EV launches don't go well, I think that's some handwriting on the wall. Right. And not that they would push her out. I just think it would be, why be the one left holding the bag? When it's clear that the consumer isn't playing ball and cooperating with our grandiose visions, right?
Gotta save the earth,
right? So no, I think when do the Chinese come in? I mean, do we start seeing any movement on EV from the consumer side on demand? Do we interest rates coming down? So I see 24 being similar to 23 in a lot of ways. That uncertainty continues.
That's what I'm predicting.
Yep.
Election year,
this time next year. Oh my gosh,
it's gonna be crazy.
It's coming up quick.
Yeah, you got a prediction on this time next year when we're closing it down. Who are we saying Mr. and Mrs. President to?
President. Let's see here. I don't know that I don't know. I would not be shocked if the two leaders. I would not be shocked if either of them were not in the race or in the picture. I mean, we're dealing with very old age and we're dealing with uncertain court issues. So who knows? So someone asked about the FTC stuff. Just do business the right way, for crying out loud. I mean, I just do business the right way and don't just be better than the guy than the folks down the street or next door, right? Just do business the right way. You don't have anything to worry about. I say that. I mean, some of these regulations are ridiculous and over the top.
Yeah.
But let NADA and the state folks fight that issue. Support them when you can, where you can. Be involved, but again, just do business the right way.
Agreed.
Well, Cliff, we thank you every year for closing the year out for us.
It's always a fun conversation, And I think I keep saying the last couple of years. Well, we just don't know. We don't know. I mean,
we don't know. We still don't.
We still don't. And I think it's going to be 2026, 2027, maybe even pushing 2028 before we get real clarity on some of this stuff. So
who knows? Maybe a whole new technology will be introduced.
Could be.
I know they're still working different hydrogen and some other different options out there. So
we could wake up.
And who knows? Maybe there's free power for all, and we're just not aware of it yet.
There you go.
Find out.
Well, I know you got to get out of here at 1:55, Cliff. So we wish you a Merry Christmas.
Appreciate that. Yeah, right back at you guys.
Yes, Cliff.
See it at
Always a pleasure.
See it at NEDA, I'm sure.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have to do dinner.
Yeah. Somewhere.
All right, Cliff. Happy
It's
holidays.
fun. Okay, you guys take care. Thank you so much.
And Merry
Take
Christmas
care.
to everybody. Yep.
Merry Christmas.
See ya.